Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for all of our attendees to join us, and we will be starting shortly. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Professional Children's School's first webinar in our series that we call PCS Presents. Throughout this school year, we will be hosting several webinars on a variety of timely topics geared to our students, parents, and our alumni community. My name is Danya Naholnik, and one of my roles at Professional Children's School is to serve as the PCS Alumni Liaison. And that is why I am excited this evening to kick off our series with a conversation with Sam Akins, class of 2014, and Barrett Doss, class of 2007. As a society, public discussions about race and racism have increased in volume and intensity. As a school, we feel a sense of responsibility to bring these topics into our classrooms and into our community spaces. These conversations and discussions provide opportunities for timely learning and serve as a catalyst for reflection and for creating change. As noted in our school's Black Lives Matter statement, PCS has pledged to introduce opportunities for support and understanding for impacted people in our community, as well as to create a forum for our BIPOC community to relate their stories and their histories, as well as to affirm and salute our work toward promoting a more welcoming and inclusive environment. For our student body and for our alumni community, there will be more opportunities to dive deeper into issues of race and racism, and you will be hearing from us shortly as we work on creating mechanisms for you to share your stories with us. This evening, we begin our journey with Sam and Barrett as they provide us with a snapshot of their experiences as members of our BIPOC community, and more importantly, how they themselves serve as agents of change in their respected professional fields. Sam Akins is a professional ballet dancer from the United States. He trained at the School of American Ballet for 4 years before joining the Los Angeles Ballet. He then danced as a principal dancer with the Alabama Ballet before moving to Australia. Sam works to inspire and pave the way for Black and Brown dancers, not only in the United States, but within the Australian dance community. Sam currently lives in Australia. Barrett Doss is an actress currently starring on ABC Station 19. After graduating from PCS, she went on to study musical theater at NYU and feels lucky to be able to call herself a working actress. Some favorite past credits include Groundhog Day original Broadway cast, Grey's Anatomy, 30 Rock, and Girls. During this conversation, if you have any questions for our panelists, please use the Q&A feature available to you, and they will answer your questions directly. Please welcome Sam and Barrett.
Hi.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, Barrett. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. How's it going?
It's okay. Yeah, it's just morning here in Australia. So waking up with you and your beautiful face. And
Well,
yeah.
I'm loving getting to see you midday. This is the first time, doing this, like these meetings has been the first time that we've met because we didn't know each other. How long were you at PCS?
I went to PCS for 3 years. Yeah. When I was at SAB. How long were you there?
Two, junior and
Two
senior year
years.
of high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved
And are
from
you
Chicago.
okay? Because I was going to ask, are you from New York?
I'm from Minnesota originally, so that it was I moved around a lot when I was a kid, but I ended it up
Okay.
in New York for my junior and senior year, trying to
Okay.
really get into like, acting professionally, which is why I
Yeah.
was at PCS. And then I ended up going to school in New York, and I was there until I moved out to LA a couple of years ago for Station 19.
That's incredible. Oh wow.
And
Okay. Yeah.
what
I
about you?
yeah.
What
I'm
brought you to
originally from
PCS?
well, yeah, I'm originally from Alabama, and then I moved to New York when I was 14, and I went to the School of American Ballet, and yeah, that's when I enrolled into PCS, and I danced there in New York, at SAB, and had amazing opportunities with New York City Ballet while I
Mm-hmm.
was there, which was phenomenal. And then when I was 18, I got my first job in Los Angeles, and I lived there for 4 years. And then after 4 years, I decided that I needed to mix it up a bit. And I came to Australia for the first time because my partner lives here. And I just fell in love with Melbourne, the
Wow.
city that I live in. And yeah, you have to come sometime. But
Oh my
it's
God, I really want to go to Australia.
please come. And yeah, and then I realized, okay, I want to create a life for myself here. I want to develop my career here. In order to do that, I need to get a partner visa, and get that process going, so I'd be able, to be hired and to work here. And so then I made that happen, but it would take a year. So that's why I went back to Alabama, and actually was really lucky that I got to dance with the
Amazing.
principal with the Alabama Ballet. So my family got to see
Yeah.
me for the first time in like 8 years. Dance.
Incredible.
Yeah, and that was just lovely. But yeah, and then it kind of brought me back, and then it brought me back to Australia, and it's where I am today, trying to navigate my way in my career. And yeah, that's a bit the kind of the roundabout way of my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's why we're here. We were
Yeah.
just sort of getting into it, but how did you, what brought you to dance? Was there anything specific that?
Yeah. No, nothing specific. I think it was just kind of like, your parents put you in after school activities when you're younger.
Yeah.
And ballet was just that thing that just stuck for me. I just fell in love with it. I mean, seriously, that was it. And it's kind of crazy because I got this video of the New York City Ballet doing the Nutcracker when I was younger. And after I saw that, I was like, I want to do that. And like, I want to dance there. And the woman in the video is this iconic dancer, Darcy Kistler. She ended up later being my teacher. I got to see her retirement performance. Like, it was just this kind of whirlwind of kind of things, I guess, signs as to like, I am doing the right thing. I'm on the right path. Like, this was always kind of, I guess, my destiny. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into dance. And then, as my career started to evolve, I guess I realized that who I am and my individuality, like me being also a Black dancer, has a lot of importance. A Black classical ballet dancer, and and that's still developing till this day. But we'll talk more about that. But I also want to know, like, how did you get into acting? Like, how did you start? Like, you're so talented. It's crazy.
Thank you. No, it's I came to it through music because I grew up. I was in the Chicago Children's Choir when I was young, like 9, 10. And then I did that for a couple years, and that sort of brought me into doing school musicals and school plays in middle school. And then I started doing summer camps, and that was like an amazing, I guess I felt like I found my people, I've loved performing and dancing. I took dance a little bit. I do not call myself a dancer. I'm a mover, but in musical theater speak. But I found my way into acting, and what I loved about it was being able to tell stories and to help people connect through stories and through seeing themselves in other people and in characters, and having fun sort of playing with the range of humanity through inhabiting them. And so that started when I started putting my finger on what I liked about it, I got more and more into it. And then ultimately that brought me to New York and PCS because I was working with some great teachers and they were really encouraging. I'm happy to say I feel like it's at least moderately paid off. So I'm always really excited to hear from or get to talk to some of my old teachers. But yeah, I found my way to New York and I absolutely loved it. And then it's sort of, you sort of play the game of the New York theater world, which is very competitive. And the ultimate goal is Broadway. And then when that happened for me, I had absolutely no idea what was next. So then luckily an opportunity came after Groundhog Day closed for me to audition for Station 19, and it worked out, which was amazing. And then that brought me out here. So it's been a roundabout way, but definitely not without its moments of doubt and fear, and trying to find your place in this profession can be really challenging.
And I think for you, especially just being such a talented and gorgeous Black woman, what is that what is that like in your field, I guess, not only like in acting and theater and television, and kind of what has that process been like, living kind of your experience?
Well, I think the first thing, and I wanted to ask you this question too, the first thing was I needed to find some people to try to model myself after, find my idols and my icons and the people I aspired to be like. So when I was young and, I was a huge musical theater nerd. So the casts of Rent, Ragtime, which is how I stumbled across Audra McDonald, Aida. So I found Heather Headley, these really incredible Black actresses and singers who were breaking molds. I of course, there have been many Black performers throughout history, but for me, Audra McDonald was someone I could see. I could go see her if I made it to New York and got a ticket. I listened to those albums over and over and over again, which is why I think now people are like, oh, you kind of sound, I was like, yeah, well, I've been trying to sound like her for the last 20 years of my life. But finding those people to model myself after and follow, and to say, how did they find their way to where they are now? Because there is no direct line for us. I mean, there's not for anyone. Of course, it's a super challenging and competitive field. But carving out a place for people who sounded like me, who I could say, well, I'm not a church singer, for example. I didn't grow up going to church. I haven't sang gospel music other than, being in a children's choir, which doesn't totally count. So I wasn't a riffer. I didn't have that thing that so many musicals in particular ask of Black women. So I had to sort of find my place, because I knew that that's not what my voice sounded like. So is there a place for me? So it took a while for me to figure out that it was going to be on me to sort of find the right team and then pick the right projects. Because it can be really awful to feel like I'm just not giving these people what they want. But so how about you? What were some of those challenges as a Black dancer, a Black male dancer too?
I don't know. I mean, it's as I'm listening to you, it's interesting because both of our fields of work, mine is like a historical kind of art form that like classical ballet been around for centuries, and yours is obviously like so it's so prevalent. I mean,
ancient,
exactly. But it's hard. That's I think it's when I started out, I obviously was really young, and I was really lucky to have had some really great mentors and people that saw something in me that I didn't even see in me. I was a national training scholar with American Ballet Theater, so they brought me to New York, and then that also led me into SAB. But while I was there, I was just so focused on just becoming the best dancer that I could be because I knew that that was kind of just, I mean, that's what we work for. We work for to strive for perfection, which we're never going to have, but that's kind of our goal, which is so unhealthy. But it's just what it is. And yeah, and so I was really focused on that. And then when I'm hearing you talk about role models, it was really hard because at the time that I was growing up in particular, there were a few men at the New York City Ballet that were of color, and they were really great to me. And but it was never, I don't know, like this whole conversation that we're having now was never as open and as obvious as it is now. And it was kind of right at the start of Misty Copeland's like rising, and so I didn't really, I wasn't like heavily influenced, if you know what I mean. Not because I don't like her, just because she wasn't like a strong voice at that time, per se. So I don't know. It was actually really, now that I look back on it, I didn't have kind of many mentors in my career to like kind of pinpoint just because of my race, that I like could truly identify with at the time. And then I think once I transitioned into my professional career, my first few years, it was really hard for me because I realized that I was a minority really early on. I would say probably from like day one of my first day in the job, honestly. And I was almost kind of upset about it. And I was like, I don't want to be defined as the Black dancer, the Black ballet dancer. I just want to be Sam. Like, I just want to be Sam Akins. I want to be known for being, you know, a really talented ballet dancer. Like, I don't like, you know what I mean? Like some like Darcy Kistler, for instance, like I named like one of my favorite dancers at the time. Like they weren't saying Darcy Kistler, the white ballerina. So it's like, why does it always have to be, you know, why did I have to have that bit added to my identity? And that was something that I really battled with for a while. Honestly, because I would just kind of push it away and didn't want to have to deal with that, because it was like, I just want people to see me for me. I work so hard every single day. I just want that to be, you know, what's given. And then I think it took me actually doing a performance where I wasn't a lead or anything. I was in the back, and a girl was in Los Angeles, and a girl, like a whole school had come, and this girl came up after the show backstage, or like I was leaving the stage door, and she said, "Oh my God, it's so great to see someone that looks like me on stage." And I'm like, what? like she came up, she specifically was like, "Can I see Sam Akins?" And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And because I was not doing anything of any importance at that time. And it was just like mind-boggling to me. You know what I mean? And that was kind of like when the light went off. And I was like, the fact that I'm standing in the back of this ballet right now, and this girl chose to come to me, come and meet me after the show, because it had, my presence had so much such significance that evening for her, that, you know, that it's like it's transcendent almost. Like, I don't know, it was something that I was like, this is like bigger than myself. Like I need to accept this. Like I am probably one of very few people doing this right now, and how can I not be one of very few also? Right. What do I need to do to make sure that this little girl, the next time she comes to the ballet, probably not the next time, but at some point in her life when she comes to the ballet, she doesn't feel like she needs to come up and tell me this. So yeah, I think that's kind of when I realized, okay, like I guess I am a Black dancer, and I am Samuel Akins, a Black ballet dancer, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that I like, a lot of times I am the first person to enter some of these rooms, but I hopefully will not be the last. And yeah, and yeah, it's just, it's kind of like become this developing kind of argument between like, why do we think this way, and why do people think that especially like classical ballet has to be this like certain type of look, or you have to be this certain type of way, like when it's 2019. Or sorry, 2020, shouldn't we be like embodying what the audience looks like? And I don't know if you feel the same thing about your television.
Well, I was actually going to say, it's interesting because as dancers, you know, I've seen, because I went to school with a bunch of your people older than you, of course, but my age, who I love so much, and I spent a lot of time with when I was in high school. So I've been to New York City Ballet many times and grew up watching dance when I was a kid. But I was always struck because ballet, and please correct me because I don't totally know what I'm talking about, but like when you look at ballet, right, we're watching, you guys don't have voices, right? You're not, there's not necessarily, unless you're playing a lead, there's you know, you are sort of expected to blend in, if you will. You know, you guys are one moving in some ways, like I'm thinking of like Swan Lake and some of these, like where we're watching moving groups of people and it's all very homogenous, almost deliberately homogenous, right? Like the expectation is that everybody looks the same so nobody sticks out.
Right.
And it's something that, you know, as actors, we don't necessarily experience in the same way, because even if you have a small role, you have those words that get to define who your character is. So I'm interested to see what you have to say about, you know, when you're in an environment that is almost, it almost requires, or some of the artistic directors and the choreographers and people want that sort of homogenous wall of people who all look the same. Where does that leave room for dark-skinned dancers or people with dark hair even sometimes? You know, like it's just, it must be a different kind of challenge when you almost stick out on accident, you know? And so there's a weird, I would guess, and I'm asking, it almost feels like it puts more pressure on you to be perfect, to not mess up, because our eye will go directly to, you know, if there's only one or two Black dancers on the stage, you see them and you know where they are.
It's absolutely incredible that I'm like flabbergasted as an outsider that you picked up on something like that, because it's even, when you're even cast for those, when you see the ballet, like for instance, Swan Lake or something, or a huge story ballet like that coming up in the season, it's already a thought in the mind. Like what happens when we're doing these corps de ballet dances and I know that I'm going to be standing out. Like I know, like it's literally already ingrained in my head. Like, you know, and it's exactly like you've said, like I have to make sure that my technique is pristine, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be that one that everyone's eye already goes to. And then they go to me and then it's like, oh God, his foot's in the wrong position. You know what I mean? It's like, you're already kind of psychosomatically thinking about this experience and what it's going to be like, which is just horrific. And I actually had someone say to me, because there was this company that I was going to potentially work for, and it was in Europe actually, and they were saying, oh, you know, don't worry, they already have a Black dancer. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean they already have a Black dancer? They already have like 105 white ones. Like maybe that's the problem. Maybe if we had more Black dancers or more dancers of color, then it wouldn't matter that there's another one that may stand out or another one that might look a little bit different. Like maybe that is the problem, that there's only one. Has anybody ever thought about that? And but of course at the time, like when he said that, it's like, oh yeah, like because you know, I was so ingrained at that time too. I was just like, it didn't even like occur to me what he was saying. And then as I keep looking back on it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes me so mad. But it's incredible that you actually picked up on something like that, because yeah, I mean that's exactly, it's like it's a whole experience that goes through our head, and then there are all these, you know, microaggressions that occur, like hair. And like, you know, a lot of the costumes have to match sometimes your skin color. So it's like, that's a whole thing, the makeup, but whatnot. But I think a big thing that I've realized also with those historical ballets is how is it that our stories are representing the audience as well? Like because when I go to the ballet, I like to feel like I can identify with the stories, or when I'm watching film or television, I like to be able to say, okay, like this is something that I've lived. And I wanted to ask you actually, do you find yourself, I don't know, like if you're, when you go into auditions, is it like typecasted? Because I lived in LA, so I did like a few kind of auditions and I had an agency, and like sometimes it would say like the ethnicity and whatnot. And I just didn't know, because it's like, you know, just because you're Black doesn't mean that you have to be playing you should be playing a particular role.
Sure.
Why can't a Black person go for the same roles as a white person? So I don't know. I wanted to ask you as well, kind of how do you battle that audition wise and like storytelling wise?
Yeah, well, I was actually talking to my boyfriend about this just the other day, because we were talking about, there, especially now, there are a lot of breakdowns. So, audition notices that are coming out, and they'll say, any ethnicity, and then the person's name is Tim O'Flaherty or something, and you're like, okay, yeah, you're saying any ethnicity, and okay, maybe my dad is Irishman or something, but how, like, are you really looking for any ethnicity? Or but in any case, I think, I find that the opportunities that I've gotten in the past few years, I'm trying to think if there's anything that's been very specific, but not a single one has been specified to be a Black actress. In fact, I think initially that wasn't necessarily what people were looking for. And, obviously I've had this one job for the last couple of years, so it's hard to say overall. But it can suck. It can suck. Sometimes it's amazing. Sometimes it feels like they are actively, especially with some of the stuff that's been happening in theater lately, where they're deliberately doing an all Black cast of X, Y, and Z, or an all female cast of whatever. And it's, and I think that's wonderful, because it provides like a lot of cool opportunities for talent. But it's challenging, because we want to not need to do that in order to find a way to play some of these meaty roles. We don't have as many opportunities, I think, as people believe we do, because our baseline, our status quo is white, right? The stories that we see, if you read a script, you're most likely to imagine a white man and a white woman, because that's what we see reflected on our TV screens, or in the movie theater or on stage most of the time. And that affects us too. That affects Black people and Asian people, Latinx people and queer people. And we see these very generic stories told with white folks, and it feels like no one's asking the question, what could it add if, like, you did think outside the box and cast some? Are there any other colors you might get out of that, literally and figuratively, that like allow you to see this story and deepen this story by allowing it to be a cross-racial relationship, or two Black folks instead of two white folks? It doesn't mean that, of course you might, if it's a new work or it's television, you might be able to futz with the script a little bit just to, make it feel real. But it's just, I think, honestly, to answer the short answer to your question is actually this: it's to get more people of color in casting, more people of color behind the camera, more people of color directing and writing, and actually supporting and producing that work, because like, that's how you get accurate representations. Because I think the problem that most people have is that some of the representations of Black people or people of color that we get to see on television or on stage or on screen is they're not accurate. No. They're minimized, they're small, they're side characters, they're not, they're standing. They're not standing in their in their power. And that doesn't mean they have to be perfect. We're all flawed. So, I also don't advocate for like, well, this Black character needs to be strong and smart and have all of her stuff together and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, we're all messy. So, I mean, it's just hard sometimes, because we're battling the expectations of, I think, the larger society, and also fighting for like fair and honest representation of Black stories, or I'll speak for Black stories, but so it can be really frustrating, but it's the growing pains, I think, that are going along with this period, and hopefully it's going to start changing.
Just chiming off what you said specifically about leadership, I think that's really important. Everybody's asking, like, how can we start to see change? Where does it come from? It comes from the top, really. I mean, because these are the people that are making the decisions, and if they aren't diverse, how can we expect to and if they don't have diverse kind of outlooks and mindset, how can we expect that the product will be of anything of any significance? So I think, it really starts from the top, and like in the film industry with the producers and the executive heads and all of that stuff. With us, it's, the board members and the directors, they are not diverse at all. It is, it is an incredibly white space. Those boardrooms are incredibly white. And I think that is a huge issue, And it makes, honestly, sometimes it makes me feel uncomfortable as a Black dancer, to be employed in situations like that. Because, I think certain decisions are made to appeal to the board. And
sure.
And that's frightening. It's really frightening. So I think, totally. I agree with you. Like, it's just started touching on that. It does. It's a huge part of the top shelf, kind of what's happening up there and then trickling down. And something that I've really been advocating for as well is, because like ballet is like a really, it's an art form that you can have to train in and work in for a really long time. So like students, I think it starts at the younger level. Obviously with acting as well, it does. You have to develop your skills, but with us, it starts so young. And, the excuse now is, oh, well, they aren't auditioning. There aren't enough, people of color auditioning, or,
there aren't enough qualified applicants.
Exactly. I'm like, and that's fine. Right. I was like, fine. If you want to make that if that's going to be your excuse, then I'm just going to create more talented students. So I'm going to create more talented dancers to bring out into the industry. So if that's going to be so then we won't be able to have that excuse anymore, so that'll be eliminated. So then we know that we'll be able to have talented students. So I think it's important for us to also look at schools and look at what they're doing, and how are they best advocating for these students of color. So are you what's your intake look like? Or if your intake's low, why is it low? Because something I've noticed a lot here in Australia, they love excuses. So it's, oh, the kids can't afford ballet. Oh, it's not close enough. That's horrible. So it's like, what are you going to do? Then maybe we offer scholarships. At the Alabama Ballet, it was really beautiful because out of the own company's pocket, out of their own dime, we would go into the community, into the Birmingham city school systems, and teach these kids how to dance in their school uniforms after school. And then at the end of the year, we'd give them a performance again out of the company's school, out of the company's budget. We'd give them performance and then offer those best kids that we felt had really great potential. We'd offer them a scholarship into the school the next year. So it's like, that's kind of how you're bringing up that diversity within your school, which then leads to professional ballet dancers, because we can't just pull them out. But I think, just it comes from the top, and then it also comes from the bottom. And then hopefully those two will meet, and then we'll have this really great product.
Yeah. Speaking of sort of the future, I wanted to ask, so what sort of, there's sort of two questions that I think it would be fun for both of us to hit, but what sort of advocacy are you doing now, especially since you're living in Australia? It's such a different environment than here in the States. But, and then, what are you doing now, and what what do you recommend for other dancers, or anybody, actors, or any Black folks or people of color in performance professions? Like, what do you see as the way forward for us to chart a path?
So currently, when I first came to Australia and I started taking classes with the Australian Ballet, I realized that it's one of the biggest ballet companies in the world, and I'm very fortunate to be able to have the relationship that I do with the company. But I realized that I am probably one of the only Black people. I think Misty Copeland comes and guests, but I think I'm probably one of very, 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 very few. I mean, like maybe 3 or 4 that have come into that building and danced in that space. And I realized that probably on day 1, 10 minutes in, it was very emotional for me, actually. A really emotional experience, because I was at a really pivotal point in my career where I actually didn't know if I wanted to dance or if, and if this was for me, because I left Los Angeles with a lot of issues with the company that I was working with. They had a lot of historical biases, I should say, that director did. And so I felt like my career was or that my art form would just let me down. But then coming to Australia, I almost got reinvigorated because I saw that there was a need for diversity in the dance community. And I realized that, like I said, like really early on, minutes into my first class. And I said, what can I do? Because this community is suffering. They have no idea that there's probably so much talent out there that's being untapped. So yeah, currently right now, I'm really advocating for more dancers of color in the Australian dance community in particular, just because I know that we have some amazing activists in dance in America and in Europe, but in Australia, there are very, very, very few because there are none. I think I'm the only professional ballet dancer of color in Australia. I have two friends who are First Nations and one is a Cuban guy, but that's it. So yeah, it's a really sad situation actually. And I didn't realize it until I came and experienced it. And I don't think a lot of people do, which is kind of why I also made the video I made on Instagram a few months back, because I was like, this is my time, I guess, to really speak up. And I've just been trying to advocate. I've been having conversations with the Australian Council for the Arts about, what we can do and how we can work towards, more diversity within the arts. I was a part of this incredible Zoom conference. Actually, I've been a part of two, one with ballet dancers all over the world who are of color, US and Europe, which has just been phenomenal. I mean, I wake up at like 3 a.m. happily to do it. But yeah, and then I was in one with Black dance artists that are in Australia. So not just ballet, but dance. And it's hearing these women, like hearing their stories. I mean, these dancers' stories, not just women, but dancers from generations. I mean, this is like generational oppression happening, and it just in tears still, like literally like living through these experiences. And it's opened my eyes, and I'm like, I can't, and maybe it's just me being an outspoken American, but I'm like, I can't sit here like for another day, another hour and just not do anything. Like so yeah, just I don't know, trying to bridge that gap and open minds to a new way of thinking, as well as something that's really important to me. And I'm trying to actively do that. Sorry, what was your second question as well?
Oh, it was just what can you recommend for maybe younger dancers or other people in your profession? What sort of paths forward do you? Yeah, I don't know, like what sort of tips and tricks, or like, what do you know what I mean? Like, it's that feeling of like, what can you, if somebody's asking, like, how can I better advocate in the in my dance community or in my performance profession for racial equality and representation, like, what would you say? And in particular, of course, for dance.
I think, I feel it's interesting because it's hard, because we're always taught to like be obedient, listen to the teacher, listen to the director, don't say anything. And like, that's how you get ahead. And I've definitely done that. And that's certainly how I got ahead. So
that vibe feels dead now, doesn't it?
Oh my God.
Like we all have to be like talking. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? But I think, and I think in a way, and I think I am privileged in that way that now because I was so obedient and was able to get ahead, like I'm able to be in these spaces and in these rooms and like talking to people that I've talked to that I know a lot of people won't have that opportunity to do. So because of that, I try to be respectful and then also get my point across so that I'm able to pay that path. But I think it's really important for even people who are not of color just to be an ally, ally to your friends. Like if you hear injustice, you got to speak up. If you hear, the stories I've gotten from moms and sorry, I'm saying moms and parents and students, just about how they've quit ballet and they felt because of different microaggressions and things like that. If you see something, you have to say something, because it's unacceptable. And the person that's kind of going through that probably most likely won't say anything, because they're already embarrassed. They're already feeling insecure. They're already traumatized from that experience. And, I think a lot of my white counterparts, they often say, I think it can be hard for people to recognize privilege sometimes. And like I've said, like I honestly, in a lot of ways, I consider myself very privileged. I mean, I went to, private school, a beautiful professional children's school, and I trained at the School of American Ballet, and like, and I'm dancing in ballet companies. So it's like, I understand that in all of its entirety. But I think a really good example, sometimes when I kind of wake up my friends, I ask them, I say, okay, so like when we audition and we're all in a room together, like, you go into the audition, you do your prep, and the most important things are like landing your turns, finishing your turns, doing really great jumps, making sure your port-de-bras and épaulement is all there. And I'm like, okay, so like you have that right. And then like, if you don't have those, and like, it's kind of ticked off against you. I'm sure you can relate to this in auditions as well. But then I'm like, but then do you have to think about your race? Do you have to think about, okay, so I didn't land that double pirouette. That's fine. But then it's like, okay, wait, are they looking for someone that looks like me? Is that
right?
Is
there a place for me?
Yeah, exactly. Am I going to fit in? So it's like, not only do my turns need to be good enough, but it's like, that may be great, but it's like, I may just not fit in, period. So it's like those kind of like check-ins that I do. And then I ask my friends those questions are like, oh my gosh, wait, like this is right. This is kind of privilege. This is what it's like. And, this is kind of how I'm excelling. But for you, I would love to know, what you're doing as well to advocate, and some of your advocacy, what advice you can give to young artists and actors.
Well, I think I'll start with the young artists and actors bit, because I think honestly, my little thing that I've been doing, it's the first time I've done anything like it. So it's sort of like I found my way to that because I mean, okay, I believe that there is room for all of us, but we have to stick together, basically. Like that's my view about especially Black actors and Black female actors. Like they want to pit us against each other, and we cannot fall for it. You know what I mean? Like we work in such a competitive industry. And I can see there's a question down there about the availability of roles. And do I feel like my current job is sort of an anomaly? And what I do think is incredible about the job that I have is working in Shondaland, under, in one of Shonda Rhimes' shows. I feel very lucky to work in an environment that embraces diversity in a really meaningful way. Doesn't mean bad stuff doesn't happen. Doesn't mean that there aren't incidents or there isn't like discomfort or some racial insensitivity from time to time, which you have to deal with as soon as it comes. Otherwise, it's a pass for the next time, But we have to advocate for each other. I feel like, I work on a show where the vast majority of the series regulars are people of color, which is unbelievable for a show that's not on a specific, either Spanish language television or BET, right? It's just not, it's not super common. And it's not about a family. It's, a bunch of, in a way it is, but in a bunch of different, it's a bunch of different people coming together, and we get to work together. So we have each other's backs a lot of the time. But we have to, I think, find your home, find your people and stick with them and support them, retweet them, Instagram, like we have to be our own microphone, because there aren't that many people out there who are giving us reaching their hands back to pull other people forward. There's this, you got to work twice as hard for half as much vibe sometimes in this industry. So the more help we can give to each other and to younger actors, younger writers, younger producers, it's I mean, I think that's probably the most important thing we can do, is not take each other out, you know, at the knees and compete, but know that there's, you know, there might be a handful of young, light-skinned Black women in Hollywood, and I will go and see all of their movies.
Yeah.
I will watch all of their shows. Even if I'm not on them, I will absolutely support them, because they need the eyes, you know what I mean? So doing as much as we can to be there for each other and support, because that's what the people in the you know, in the boardrooms are talking about. What's the viewership? You know, so if they don't have eyes, your show doesn't get picked up again, and then you're unemployed. And so it's important to give that sort of support to people, and to get creative and write your own stuff. So that's, you know, a scary idea, but I'm trying. And then as far as what I'm doing right now, advocacy wise, what was exciting, and amidst this like tragic time in our country's history, after the death of George Floyd, I did not know what to do. I was reading the books. I lived my life with this face and this body and this skin. And so but I knew that I felt, you know, I'm new to television. You know, this is my fourth year on a show. And I felt like, you know, I'm not huge on Instagram. I don't do that much, but what little platform I have, I want to use. And so I came up with this idea called, well, my buddy Jason George, who's on my show, named it. But when we were bouncing back and forth, after I brought the idea to him, he called it #19for20. So it's 19 terms, like words or terms to know for 2020, for the year 2020. And it was focused at the beginning on social justice issues. And we sort of almost try to like Sesame Street it, like get as simple as possible in defining these ideas. Maybe you say a little bit about its history, and then you try to use it in context and say, here's what people are saying now, and here's what we can do going forward. But the whole idea was to just familiarize people, our younger fans, I mean, anybody really who's paying attention, like, what does this actually mean? We need to get comfortable having these conversations like you and I are having, Sam, because, you know, I think what turns people off so much is they don't feel like they know the right words to say, or if someone uses a word they don't understand, it goes over their head and then you're gone. Like then you turn your brain off. I've changed the channel. I'm not with it anymore. Like if I'm watching the news and I don't know what someone's saying, my eyes glaze over. So my intention was to educate, try to educate people and ourselves at the same time about what the actual definitions, like what does this actually mean when someone uses the term gerrymandering? What does that actually mean when someone's talking about redlining or I mean, we did systemic racism, something even that broad, like, you know, that was something people were throwing around a lot. And I think that there are some people, especially younger people, maybe people who English isn't their first language, who don't quite, you know, can't quite put their finger on what that actually means, you know, when we're talking about it. So I was like, let's just take, you know, our cast, maybe some folks from Grey's Anatomy, you know, people I know, and see if we can do short videos that help educate people and ourselves. And so it facilitates conversation and allows people to maybe make a mistake. Maybe they say something crazy and you have to say, actually, that's not quite what that means. And can I, you know, but we need to practice that, because our habits are what we practice. So if we don't practice messing up and then correcting ourselves, then we'll never do it. So, so that's sort of what I'm doing now, but it was born of discomfort. It was born of feeling helpless. And it's still sort of a very small step, but it's meaningful for me. I think it's been meaningful for my cast and for the people who follow us, you know, with this little hashtag. And so we do one video a week and we're reaching the end. And I'm sort of like, ooh, okay, what's next? Because we're actually finishing the week before the election, which is kind of perfect timing. But we've been doing it for quite a while, and it's been a long slog. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing it like Like it's stressful, and I don't know how to like what's going to come next. But it's, you know, you don't have to be an expert to do something. I think that's what I want. That, I guess, the thesis statement of that whole rant that I just went on, and this project to be. It's like, you don't have to be an expert to have a conversation with somebody, and to have an opinion. And you really just need to just keep talking about it, because it's hard when you stop the conversation stops. Yeah. So then, you know, it's up to us.
Totally. Oh my God, I love that. I think it's so important, like you said, just to use your platform like in the best way possible, in any way possible. I think people always think, oh, you know, I don't, you know, I have 50 followers, or I have 100 followers, or, you know, I don't post that much. I'm like, doesn't matter.
It doesn't
like,
matter.
If one person sees what you've posted, then that person reposts, and that, like, that's the whole point. Like,
yeah, if you are the one
advocacy.
Black dancer on the stage, they see you, you know,
literally.
what I mean? Like, it all comes full circle. Like, it doesn't matter if you have 50 followers.
Yes.
Those people know that those are, you know, that like where you stand, and who you are, you know, and that's so important.
Oh my God, I love hearing that. I'm gonna have to like dive more into this 19 for 20.
Yeah, it's on Instagram. So you can, if you look up the hashtag 19 for 20, you'll find we're 14 weeks in. We've had 14 videos, and we've done a live almost every week too, between either two actors or an actor and a guest. Today, Jason George did an Instagram live with Stacey Abrams, which was like, this came out of my fucking, excuse my language, but it came out of my brain, you know, 15 weeks ago, and suddenly one of my castmates is getting to talk to Stacey Abrams, you know, and it's inform people about voter suppression. So it's really been a great opportunity.
That's phenomenal.
We had we have a little question, I think, from or not a question, but we wanted to take a note from Danya too. How can non-people of color, non-POCs help to implement change within our industries? Read a little bit.
Read it. I mean, education is so important. I think it's an integral part of allyship. Also, I mean, talk with your friends that are people of color. You know, ask them, how can you do better? What can I do to do better? And it's uncomfortable conversations. It's that's what it's all about, I think, because then having uncomfortable conversations lead to comfortable conversations. The next time you have it, you're less scared to ask certain questions. Like, I even have friends who are scared to say, especially here, scared to say the word Black, or like, is Black offensive? Right. Like, no, it's fine. I say it all the time. Like, like, I'm a sassy Black woman. No, but no, I mean, and I think, you know, just kind of pushing those boundaries. I had a really very interesting conversation with this guy who's the director of an arts foundation here, who gives funding to artists, and you know what he said to me, actually, he said he made the comment, ballet was created for a certain type of person, and that was so and he was a white man, he was older, so when he said that, it was 2019, and I was like, okay, and I said, so I can either get really irritated and angry and outraged, or, you know, I looked at it as like, okay, oh my God, the fact that, and he's really educated, he's very cultured as well, like he's not, I don't think he's not super conservative, he was very like with it, so the fact that he was saying that was like, actually, like, I was like, okay, this is like an educational moment for him. So I looked at it as that, so I was like, calmly said, okay, sir, so it's 2019, you're telling me ballet is created for a certain type of person. I'm a classical ballet dancer. I have been working in ballet for 6 years. I am asking you right now, what can we do to do better? And then it was kind of like glasses off. Literally, he took his glasses off and his wristwatch off. I think he was getting hot. But like, you know what I mean? Like, actually trying to like also educate each other and teach each other. But like I said, I mean, if you see something, say something. If there's a situation of injustice, we all have to speak up. Because that Black person, especially, that's going through it, is traumatized, is like actually going, traumatic experience. So if you're an educator or a fellow student or a friend, you got to stick up for that person as well, and do your part, and know that it's sad to say, but probably as a white person, you will be heard more, and maybe more respected, especially in that instance.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, I know if you work with a person of color or a few people of color, they will have opinions about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
stuff you might not see, you might not know, you might not have heard about. If you ask a direct question to one of your Black colleagues, or like, they will have something to say, which is, I think, shocking to some people.
Yeah.
I think like people genuinely are like, well, if they're not talking about it, then it must not be happening. No, it's happening. They have opinions, I promise. Just ask the blunt question and be ready for the answer. Be open to the answer. Know that there is stuff that's happening that you're not seeing. There are messages that you might be sending that you don't mean to. And you should know, we should all seek out where our blind spots are and poke at them until they go away. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's so important to be open to that kind of difficult conversation, that kind of criticism, that it might feel very personal, but know that it's harder to hear someone mispronounce your name every day. It is, like it's like, these are things that people experience that you might not even realize. And so I don't know.
No, I completely agree with you. It's an ongoing process, and hopefully we're all working towards the better. I just need Danya's here making some comments for us. So
I don't know. Should we close up? Because we're reaching the end of our time. It's been so great to talk to you, Sam.
Oh my God.
I hope we actually get to meet in person sometime.
I would love that. Fun. Seriously, next time I'm in LA, I was actually just there like literally the week COVID hit, because I was like in America
for
4 days, and I was stuck there for a month. But I was just in LA, but I would love to meet you, or if you come to Australia.
Well, I want to go to Australia. I was going to say, we didn't get that much. The hour went by so fast, but I work with a couple people from Australia who I've met through the show, and they did videos for 19 for 20 and talked a little bit about Australia in them. And it's been really cool. So check that out for sure. But I love Australia, but I've never been there, but I already love it.
And how do we stay in touch with you on Instagram and anywhere else?
Yeah. You can find me. It's probably easier just to search my name, Barrett Doss, BarrettDoss. But my Instagram handle is Don't Go Jason Waterfalls.
Why? I was wondering, what's the story behind it?
Oh, I thought those were the lyrics to that song. Don't go Jason Waterfall. I don't know. I got my Instagram, however many years ago, and now it's chasing me now that I have a check mark. It's very strange. But I've decided I don't want to change it. So, oh well.
I love it.
And how about you?
Yeah, it's just, I think all my socials are at Sam Akins. I've tried to streamline it. But no, like my Snapchat is Sam Akins. Don't add me on Snapchat. But yeah, so I get the vibe of like 2012 and signing up for those kind of things. But it sounds like the alumni community will also be expanding on these types of discussions. And I mean, I will be taking part, I guess, in the future.
Stay tuned. I'd like to keep participating too. It's been really, really fun and interesting to think about these questions in terms of sort of where we came from, like we were affiliated with PCS when we were younger, and it feels like, I mean, for me, it was a long time ago, but I'm so happy and proud that my, mini alma mater is doing such an amazing job. So thank you, Danya.
Thank you guys
PCS.
So much.
We love you.
Just like giving us the space to talk and to chat and amplify our voices, quite literally, is just phenomenal. So good on you, PCS. And I know you guys will continue to do the great work, as we all will. Moving forward. So
thank you.
Thanks guys for watching us and hearing us. Bye.
I don't know what to do now. Leave the meeting?
Okay. Do we finish the song?
I guess so. Okay.
Bye.